All right, shalom, shalom. Let's see, this thing is recording. Okay, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Racha HaKodash, the honor some other apostles, stone, and peace and salutation to the hopeful members, the elect, the Bechari in the house of David, that's been preordained, predestined to be delivered in these last times and to be the ruling governing body of the nation of Yash Allah. So I want to go into a few topics. The first one is the violence that's rising in Ecuador, gang wars, going at it with the police, the higher authorities over there in that country, how the violence in Ecuador affects the United States. So we're going to watch this.
Ecuador is under lockdown tonight as government forces clash with drug cartels across the country. A powdered keg of violence exploding after one of the nation's most notorious cartel leaders was found missing in his prison cell over the weekend. Then the incident that shocked the world. Masked gunmen interrupting a live TV broadcast holding journalists hostage. Police stormed the station arresting the gunmen and all hostages were released. But Ecuador's new president still vowing to restore calm in the streets. Violent deaths rising in Ecuador, more than 8,000 last year. Its government says making it one of the most dangerous countries in Latin America. Behind Ecuador's troubles, something experts call narco-terrorism.
Drug trafficking groups want to expand the production of narcotics to make a profit. At some point, they come in conflict with the state, and then they resort to terrorist tactics.
And what happens in Ecuador doesn't necessarily stay there. It's sandwiched between what the UN says are the world's largest cultivators of cocaine, Colombia and Peru. The latter just declaring a state of emergency on its northern border with Ecuador.
A very small country plays a very big role in the supply chain economics for multi-ton quantities of cocaine that transit through Ecuador to Mexico and then to the United States.
The U.S. closely watching what's happening.
Certainly, we were willing to talk with the government of Ecuador about what they might need.
Ecuador's president reconsidering the country's ban on extraditions of internationally wanted criminals and seizing assets from suspects. But experts say it could take a whole lot more than that.
An all-out military effort to neutralize not just the cartel members, but all the individuals who support the cartels, the bankers, the lawyers, the individuals who help them launder their money.
For now, Ecuador just trying to stabilize the situation as the country is up in flames.
It's just so scary to see. Guad is joining us now. And Guad, for obvious reasons, there are some Ecuadorians who want to leave, who want to get out. And there's a ripple effect from that, right?
Hallie, of all the reporting we've done at the U.S.-Mexico border, I think every single visit that we've made with my crew, we ran into individuals who left Ecuador. When we talk to them, they always say they are fleeing the violence. And if you look at numbers, Customs and Border Protection released the numbers for 2023 fiscal year. They encountered about 117,000 people from Ecuador at the U.S.-Mexico border. Now compare that to the year before, where they encountered about 24,000. So we're talking about an increase of about 5 times of people that have left Ecuador looking for asylum in the U.S. This is asylum because of what's happening in Ecuador for humanitarian reasons. So you can only imagine if the violence escalates, a lot of individuals will find no other option but to leave the country and could be making their way to the U.S.-Mexico border, attempting to enter the U.S. and seek asylum.
Really notable numbers there, Guad. Thank you so much.
Right, so, again, it's violence that's rising in Ecuador, all right? Gang wars, all right? The gangs over there, the drug cartels at it against the higher authorities, all right? The police force. And this is all orchestrated by Esau, okay? But nevertheless, they said that this can come to the United States, all right? These people, and we already have an influx of migrants coming over, all right? Not just Jake, but Moab, okay? People from certain parts of Africa, all right? So, hey, man, it's going to be a wild year, It's going to be a wild year, all right? With these migrants coming over, crime is going to shoot up. And these Jakes that come from these third world countries, They come from a whole nother world. They don't play this alphabet, they don't play with this, they won't play with these effeminate men out here, all right? They'll put them to death, But let me get, because there's war out there. It's violence rising. It's something that has been happening every day since January 1st. Every day something's happening. Okay, all around the world, all at once. But violence is rising over there, and that's soon going to come to America. All right, what you see. 2 Ezra 15, verse 5. For behold, said the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. The Lord is doing it. And the sword is definitely being brought down. You see it in what's going on in Israel, all right, Ecuador, you see. And orchestrated famine will come. Again, a farmer had just released information of they've been, commanded to euthanize their chickens, all right? They had to euthanize their chickens and cattle. So orchestrated famine is coming, okay? Pestilence, that's going to come, okay? So now let me get, I brought this out earlier. Red Sea crisis, UN Security Council demands immediate end to Houthi attacks, all right? It says the UN Security Council has called for an immediate end to attacks by Yemen's Houthi rebels on shipping in the Red Sea, adopting a resolution despite abstentions from Russia and China. The resolution also called on the Houthis to release the Galaxy Leader, a Japanese-operated vehicle carrier linked to an Israeli businessman that the group commanded on the 19th of November, along with its 25 crew members. U.S. Central Command said there have been 26 Houthi strikes on shipping since then, causing shipping companies to bypass the route and divert around South Africa's Cape of Good Hope, significantly adding to journey times and cost. This will affect certain countries' economies. And this is all orchestrated. Okay. It's all orchestrated. This will affect different economies. All right. An attack and boarding of the St. Nicholas off the Oman coast reported hours after the UN Security Council passed its resolution is yet to be identified and may be the work of Iranians, not the Houthis based in Yemen. And they're always trying to put the blame on the Iranians, I noticed. Okay. On Wednesday, Antony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, said further attacks could prompt a Western military response. He was speaking after U.S. and British warships on Tuesday shot down 21 drones and missiles fired by the Houthis in what London called the largest such attack in the area. Well, now check this out. Just moments ago, all right, that's the spirit,
Launching new airstrikes. These are against military positions against the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen. It's retaliation for what have been a consistent string of attacks on shipping vessels into the Red Sea. You see the Red Sea there on the left of Yemen's border there, which is coming down the pike over Saudi Arabia's border. And this has been, if you follow the news, a big issue. The UN Security Council recently weighing in, teeing up what the West said was a final warning. Well, it appears tonight now from this reporting that they are past the warning stage. We have a very special guest to try to make sense of this story. David Rothkopf is a foreign policy expert. He served in the Clinton administration. He hosts Deep State Radio. This is not...
It's getting wild over there, all right? Let me get a scripture. Because you're seeing the prelude of World War III being set up, all right? All these little mini attacks, it's all going to boil down because the valley of Yehoshaphat, these troops are being gathered over there from Israel and the Gaza Strip, all right? Forcing genocide, doing genocide on those Palestinians, all right? That's why you have these certain militia groups that's attacking Israel, okay? As for example, the Houthis that's on the Red Sea attacking these different these shipping merchants, all right? Trying to destabilize their economy, okay? But these troops, these military troops from these different nations will be all gathered to the Middle East, all right? It's going to be one event that's going to lead to the next. Something else might happen, or something else is going to happen. But all in all, that's where they're all going to be gathered to, all right? The so-called Middle East, I should say, which really is West Asia, all right? But they're all going to be gathered in that region, all right? Because that's going to be the hot zone for World War III, all right? So something else is going to happen, okay? And then, and once they touch Iran, Russia's going to hop in, and it's going to be on and popping, all right? But before that has to be the implementation of the RFID chip. But either way, you're seeing these nations, their military is going down there, all right? Being gathered to that area, all right? The land is barren and desolate, all right? Joel 2, verse 20. But I will remove far off from you the northern army, that's the American army, all right? The American troops, and will drive him into a land barren and desolate. That's the Arabian region, all right? And you have troops over there. Biden was sending troops over there, all right? Because of the whole Israel versus Hamas war, It says, with his face toward the East Sea, all right, that's the Red Sea, and his hinder part toward the utmost sea, all right, the Euphrates River, and his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he had done great things. A lot of dead bodies, all these troops that go over there from all these different nations they're all going to die over there, all right? Especially during World War III, and especially when Yahushua comes back and annihilates all of them, So let's go back.
Of pure surprise, David, in that, as I mentioned, the UN Security Council and other measures had made public warnings that there could be these strikes. Tonight, breaking news, the strikes are happening. Explain to us how we got here.
Well, the Houthis, since the beginning of the conflict between Israel and Gaza, have been harassing ship traffic in the region. It had caused a substantial drop-off in ships passing through the Suez Canal, and that has an economic effect. And they had also been, launching missiles and drones and things that had effect and could have had a much larger negative effect. Warnings had been given. And I think the message is now no more warnings. That 12 sites.
It's the 11th of January. Something has been happening every day. Every day something's happening now.
Were struck. This includes sites for drone storage. Drones were one of the means they were reaching out. Training sites and other sites. And it was the U.S. acting alongside the British, which I think sends a message that the international community does not want this to continue, not just any one nation.
As you say, there's been an emphasis and a kind of a telegraphing of this being an alliance, an effort not to make it look like a U.S. action designed to have a one-on-one, let alone an act of war. I just want to read briefly from that UN Security Council resolution, which was a diplomatic statement, of course, basically saying that the UN member states, quote, in accordance with international law, may defend their vessels from attack, this being posited as a necessary counterattack. Explain why that matters in the context of the UN having a unanimous resolution.
Well, I think it matters because it shows that the United States and the United Kingdom are acting consistent with international law. The Houthis were not. And I think it also sends a message to the Iranians that their support for groups like Hamas, like the Houthis, like Hezbollah, should not be seen as unlimited. We are not intimidated by that to the point that we will not respond, even though we do not want this to escalate. But that last point, we don't want it to escalate, so we're going to handle it in a measured, responsible, consistent with international law fashion, I think is especially important.
I mean, you make that point. I want to read from some of the reporting on this in the international section of the Wall Street Journal, which really overlaps with what you raise. And you don't need to be a Mideast expert to look up and see Western strikes on Yemen, the links to Iran, and think about the wider conflict and tension in the region. The Journal reports basically the Biden administration until tonight had actually been reluctant to issue this kind of military response to what they see as these repeated attacks, saying, quote, they didn't want to, quote, trigger a war in the region, aware of the group's backing from Tehran. And yet now they count at least 27
war will take place in that region. Okay.
Attacks by the Houthi group. So another way of saying that is 27 attacks that until tonight had gone unanswered. If someone's watching, David, and they're looking at this and saying, okay, does that mean the risk of a regional conflict that spills out even beyond Israel-Hamas is higher? A sustained involvement of other countries? Is that a greater risk tonight or too soon to tell?
I think it's too soon to tell. The Iranians have a number of proxies operating in the region, and clearly they have been beyond provocative. The Hamas attack was horrific. Their support for Hezbollah and support for the Houthis, support for militia groups in Iraq and in Syria have all, the possibility of having this spin out of control. But I think the United States action tonight with the United Kingdom was to send a message, which is we are determined to keep the peace. We are not going to let you spin this up to a level of chaos for shipping and other kinds of things. And I think ultimately this kind of measured, targeted, consistent with international law response is exactly the kind of thing that can keep this from escalating rather than allowing provocations to continue unresponded to until something happens accidental that triggers something much broader.
Understood. David, appreciate your reporting and analysis on this issue. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez is reporting from the White House. What are you hearing from the administration on what was telegraphed but now is happening, these attacks on the Houthis in Yemen?
What we've been able to confirm, the two U.S. officials telling us that the U.S. and the U.K. have already begun these strikes. But this comes after, the National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby earlier today warned the Houthis of any attacks on any ships. And of course, the White House has repeatedly issued that warning, but up until now really hadn't had much of an effect. Now, the U.S. and the U.K. have been considering this for some time, and the U.S. had already responded by shooting down missiles and drones in the region. The U.S. Navy also recently sank Houthi boats that had fired on commercial ships. But this is...
They'll have to bring back the draft. Yeah, that's coming. They send more of these troops over there, and they're barely getting any military troops. They're barely getting any military troops over here in the U.S. The draft will come. But let's play the rest of this video, or maybe just one more minute.
An escalation going to these land-based targets. Again, we don't have confirmation on exactly how many targets were hit. We expect to learn more from that in just a short time from the White House. But again, no confirmation yet, official confirmation from the National Security Council. But the breaking news, Ari, as you've been reporting that there's...
The rest of it, because I can barely hear it, so I know, but you brothers can barely hear it too. But it's going... MSNBC, all right, it's right there. See the title, breaking. U.S. and Britain launch strikes against targets in Houthi-controlled Yemen. Yeah, so it's on and popping, baby. All right, it's on and popping, man. And I was just reading that article earlier, and I was like, yeah, I got to do a lesson, and this just happened, So what's going on in Ecuador, that's going to spill over to the United States. They're saying all these migrants coming in, and oh, man, what's going on in the Red Sea now, and how they just did an airstrike in Yemen. Yeah, this is definitely the time. This is definitely the hope for year of Jacob's trouble. All right, so with that, Shalom.